I'm Sean,
Hi, and I'm Shannon.
and we're the host of Wifey and Baby Mama. Thank you all for joining us again, and welcome to all of our new listeners to this week's episode titled Many Men. As promised, when we started this podcast, we're going to explore a lot of different angles of blended families and relationships. And tonight is definitely a side that we felt is important when dealing with children. We thought taking a look at the dynamic of a situation when there's more than one male in the picture could be beneficial for families who are dealing with or that may deal with people who have children in the future. Now, this will be our female perspective. We can't speak as males. However, Shannon and I have both experienced this, having children with men who are no longer in relationships with us. But we will always have, or at least should have, some sort of connection with because we share a child. Maybe not so much with you anymore, Shannon, as your son is grown, but I'm actually
Right.
still dealing with it, having teenage children and having to interact with their fathers when it comes to the needs of my daughters.
hmm Yeah, and even though my son is grown, I do have a good relationship with the common denominator and or buddy and you. So,
Right.
because our dynamic is probably a lot different than other people. Even as my son matures and gets older and older, becomes an old man, I still can feel comfortable saying, "Hey, I can reach out to buddy," because it's okay for whatever's going on with his grown son, but for the most part
Absolutely.
I don't have to. Yeah, it's a given, or I should say a given. It's understood that it's okay, but I don't have to. I know that my son is old enough to reach out to his father himself, and I don't have to reach in or step in or whatever. So I am grateful that the door is open, but I don't use it or take advantage of it, or
Right.
um,
But
mis
even with
or misuse it.
misuse it. Yep.
Yeah.
But even with him being grown, it's things that you're gonna want to say, like, like I said, hey, he's thinking about changing jobs. Like he's kind of
hmm
undecisive. As a male, what would you do? You
Oh
have a
yeah.
husband that I'm sure the little things as a
Oh
male
yeah.
you can go to your husband for. But as his
Oh
father,
yeah.
you may say, he's thinking about doing this, buddy. Could you try and change his mind? I don't think this is a good path for him. I
Oh
don't care
yeah.
how old the child get, you're still their parents. And it's going
Right.
to
And
be
here's a perfect
necessary.
exactly. And here's a perfect example of that actual situation. This happened probably about, I don't know, 5, 6 years ago. So
Hmm.
my son was still an adult, but he was running a food truck. I had bought him
Hmm.
a food truck, trying to set him up in life. I'm like, let me
Okay.
give you this food truck business, do this, blah, blah, blah. A situation happened where uh, someone from Hollywood wanted to possibly record a or start filming a reality show about this food truck or whatever. And my son wasn't on board. he was he was going off like this happens to people every day. So of course I call Buddy. I'm like, "Will you
Hmm.
to your son? Well,
Yeah.
he does not want to meet with this Hollywood person, blah blah blah, whatever." So in that
Wow.
situation, I felt
I
it was
remember that.
necessary.
Yeah.
You remember that
Yep. I
to
remember
get.
that. Uh-huh.
Yeah,
I
I'm like
forgot about
somebody
that.
needs to.
Yeah.
Yeah, somebody needs
Somebody
to
needs to
get
talk
on
some
this
sense
boy.
into him.
Yeah, so ultimately nothing happened from it because my son did not really want to work that food truck, and we're no longer in that business. But
but
it
but
was
you
an
tried.
example of, yeah, it's just an example of where I did reach out, to
Saying,
Buddy and
"Hey,
say,
could you help
"Hey,
me out with this?" But that
yeah,
but that goes to show too that even though he's grown, this is something
yeah,
as parents we need to come together on because it's for the benefit of our child. But the real
exactly.
side of that is once that child is grown, we can try and influence them. But once they're grown, Shannon, they have to make their own minds up.
I know,
So
yeah,
ultimately,
yeah.
you two may have seen the opportunity in it, but what can you do when they're grown?
What can you do?"
Right. So I want to talk about, like, first of all, with all of our topics, the healthy aspect of the topic of many men, which of course would be, everyone establishing a good, wholesome relationship and hash out a way to raise the children the most positive way possible. Now, note I said positive, not perfect. Of
Right.
course, there will be disagreements. Not everyone involved, Shannon, will see eye to eye at all time, and that's okay.
hmm
But don't at any point dads think if things boil over or something can't be resolved, by holding hands and singing kumbaya, that we failed now. Things are going to happen.
Right.
People are not always going to agree, but learn whatever lesson you need and make strides to keep things moving in the right direction.
Right.
You know?
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely.
Now, another, look at that would be the not so positive side, where there's more than one man and everyone wants to be the boss. In a
Oh.
relationship, when co-parenting, fellas, there's no room for egos. And just because you made a child doesn't make you a father. You can't,
Mhm.
in your rightful mind, think you can float around living your best life, not helping that woman, getting a different woman pregnant every month because you have those, doing anything and everything besides helping raise that child. Then have an issue or opinion when someone steps up and starts interacting with the child and, and being with the mom. Now, don't miss me. I've learned to make myself
Mhm.
clear when I say things. I had that symptom. I hear what I want to hear. So let me I had that symptom. I've been delivered. So let me say it again and hear me clearly. Being an absent father doesn't mean you're still not that child's father. You know, Nothing can
Mhm.
change that unless you abuse the child. And in my case, you wouldn't be anybody's dad because I'm going to send you to glory. But, back to my point, being a bad dad doesn't change the DNA, or negate you from your responsibility once the mother's gotten with a responsible man. You know, None of that
Mhm.
changes. But if you want some rights and opinions, you have to be offering some sort of assistance to that child. If things are hard on you, Shannon, you may not have money if you're out of work. Offer your time,
Mhm.
offer to
Yeah.
babysit, attend
Yeah.
PTAs to take some pressure off of the mom somehow.
Yeah. And or I mean just being present, period.
That's it.
I hear this a lot from, people that grew up in from a broken home. And even with me, I was of course very close to my father. My father was my everything, but we were, however many miles away from him, and he wasn't a daily um constant in my life, you know, from what most people look at from an ideal father situation. But I
And the
had
same
him
for
on a
me.
pedestal. Yeah, I
Me
had
too.
him on a
My father,
pedestal.
my
I didn't
father was an
care.
over the road. Yeah, my father was an over the
Yeah.
road trucker, Shannon. I didn't see my father often either,
See?
but he was a financial support.
Yeah.
But I didn't see
Yeah.
him. My stepfather raised
Yeah.
me, so I totally understand. But I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, but the same way you had your father on a pedestal, because we've talked about this, both of us, we valued our fathers,
We adored him. Yeah.
yeah, adored them. And when I look at, my father, he remarried after my mother, and he stayed married, of course, to the day he died, because that's my father. He was just a faithful guy, he just
Right.
like, I'm not here, I'm not trying to bounce around from chick to chick to chick or whatever. Not passing judgment on those that do
Right.
that. I don't want us to sound real, real preachy, even though we are a little
Right.
preachy. But
A little bit.
um, just a tiny bit. But the fact that he was there, he was a constant, even though I didn't see him constantly. He was a constant. If anytime I reached out, he was there. Anytime I picked up the phone, he called me every single day. That's one thing I can
Hmm.
say about my dad. I never went a day without hearing him, or if I missed a call, I got a voicemail, and so of course I knew to call him right back. And I'm so blessed that I still have one of his final voicemails, and some people may call it a little, crazy, but I have to listen to it every week, sometimes
I
every day.
totally get it. I get it. I was like all shaky and nervous. I didn't want to turn my father's
Yeah.
phone off because I wanted to be able to call
Oh
and hear his
yeah.
voicemail.
Yes,
And now
yes.
after my father's been dead 2 years, everybody like, okay, now you about to pay this bill. It doesn't matter. But
It doesn't
the whole
matter.
point, yeah, the whole
Mm-mm.
point was I wanted to hear his voice. I totally get it.
Mm-hmm.
They have to,
Yeah.
they were present to some capacity. You know what I mean?
Right,
Whether it was
right.
physically, financially, we knew daddy. And we knew that
Mm-hmm.
I knew, sounds like I can speak for
Mm-hmm.
you too when I say,
Yep, you
if I
can.
called my daddy, it was all right. If
Mm-hmm.
my daddy said I could do it, it's nothing else somebody else could tell me.
Mhm. That's right.
If I burned a house down and I had the fire in
Yeah.
one hand, girl, and the paper in the other, he'd be
Yeah.
like, she didn't do that. That's how much my
Exactly.
father believed in me. So the point we're trying to make here is don't think you can be MIA, fellas. And then when another man comes along, here you come pulling the daddy card. Like you have to do something to
Right.
earn that right besides donate sperm. It's
Right.
more to being a daddy than that. And
Mhm.
once that woman is in a healthy relationship, don't do that to the child, or
Mhm.
disturb their peace because as we've discussed quite often, any static or chaos with the adults will definitely affect the kids, you know.
Right. Right. And the flip side to that too, some men may say, "Oh, she's in another relationship." So they move on, forgetting about their kids with that
That
woman,
is so
you
true.
know? And
Yep,
I'm like,
that is true.
"Why do y'all do that?" And it just creates so much anger in the children, and they
And
grow up and they
hurt.
never let it go. Yeah, hurt and anger. Yes, you're right. Hurt and anger. And they never let it go. I talk to grown women my age who are
Have daddy
still
issues
holding
because of
on to,
that.
yeah, they got daddy issues. Like, oh, he moved on with the other woman and her kids. He's raising her kids. Or I'm like, but you're 50, still
You know
talking
what I'm
about him and
saying?
these other kids. What have you done as an adult to fix that? It can't all be on, in my opinion now. I know I'm going to get some backlash, but it can't all be on that parent. It has to be once you're an adult. Now if you're a kid, that's different, but once you're an adult and you recognize that there's been something wrong there, if you don't try to fix it, then don't talk about it, don't
It's a
dwell
fact.
on it, move on. But if you're going to dog this man or dog that woman, if it's a mother, because it could be a mother too, but in
That's right.
this episode we're talking about men.
Yeah, we get
But
to
if
them
you're
next
going
week.
to, yeah, right. But if you're going to dog this man, the entire your entire lifetime, it's like you're wasting your life. Either you fix it or you forget it. One or the other. Don't just keep dogging and talking trash. And I hear
Because
that so much.
it's not just bad on the father. Okay, they did what they did, and that's definitely wrong. But when you
Mhm.
continue to harp on it, it keeps you in that place. It doesn't allow you to move
Yes.
on. You have to
Right.
fix it and forget it, like you said, or just forget it and forgive it altogether and just move on.
Mhm.
But
Right.
my opinion and my advice would be to fix it. And again, I know we're going to talk about the women next week, but I went on with my mom like that. All of my 20s and 30s, my mom and I were not in a good place. But I constantly fought and prayed for a relationship with my mom. And when she got herself together, I think it's about 7 years when she was like on her right path before she passed, were the best years of my life. Had I harped
Mm.
on, mom wasn't there, mom left me. Like you said, I know we're
Mhm.
talking about men, but I
Mhm.
didn't have daddy issues,
Yeah.
so I'm just referring to a
Yeah.
mom situation.
Right. Right.
I would have never, been able to have that if I would have held on to that hurt.
Mhm.
And it was definitely all on her. Because like you said, when you're a kid, there's nothing you can do about the way you're treated or
Right.
whatever. But I just still knew that was my mom, and I knew you get but
Yeah.
one. So at all
Yes.
costs, I wanted to fix it with her. So
Yeah.
I'm, back on the last aspect of this topic I want to explore before we move on is for the women. Now that I'm speaking on my mom, in our case, women don't let many men be a negative for the children. It's always great to have help, but it's even better to be cautious. When it's,
Yes.
when I went throughout my dating phases. No one met my children until I was sure it was moving to something serious. I also
Mhm.
spoke with my children's father and was like, hey, this is what, I met such and such. This is what it is. This is what we're doing. Giving them insight on my new partner and the fact that they will
Mhm.
now be around your child too. I know none of my children's father had to ever worry if I was being smart in that area because anyone who knows me, Shannon, knows it's for a reason, baby. I'll rock that orange jumpsuit without a doubt. And that's for my four
Mhm.
kids. But I played fair
Yes.
because I would want to know if they had other women and who they had around my kids if the shoe was on the other foot.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and that's interesting to me too that you mentioned that. You're interested in who the other women are around your kids because there are women who don't care.
There are,
They
not me.
there are. I know. Yeah, me either. I always I did not introduce my son to people either until he was, I want to say 16, 17 years old.
Hmm.
But when he was younger, no. It was like,
That's right.
nope, you're not meeting anybody. you're going to my to my dad's for the weekend while I go out on a date, that type of thing,
Right. Right. And that's
So,
what I mean. Unless you know it's something serious, that's the way it should be. And
mhm.
I'm gonna probably step on some toes here, ladies, but thank me later. It's in no way, shape, or form healthy to have all kinds of men around your children, boys or
Yeah,
girls. In this sick
right.
world we live in, we gonna have to guard these babies with all we got. And if you
Yeah.
want to throw it back on OnlyFans, you want to throw it back in Vegas, on Broadway,
Mhm.
wherever, keep that away
Yeah.
from your kids. I'm not
Yeah.
judging. Like we said, we're not here to judge. We're not in a position to do that. Because now that we've
Nope.
made our mistakes, it don't make us better than anyone else. We just have wisdom to try to keep someone else from doing it. We try to use our wisdom to negate other people from doing the things that we did. So I can just tell you, besides it being physically unsafe to have all these different men, it's
Mhm.
emotionally scarring to children.
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah.
Shannon, you said on a previous episode, things may not affect everyone to the same degree, but anything that's unhealthy will have some kind of effect, whether it's right now the child stays alive or when they get
Mhm.
into their own relationships.
Yeah. And I know we'll touch on some, more serious topics, but I can say what you just touched on about, unhealthy. It. I had a conversation last week with someone that I know, another black girl, and she was talking about, being, sexually assaulted as a young girl, and that
Hmm.
happens to so many of us.
You wouldn't
And
believe it.
including me, and I have to say that I'm putting it out there. It has happened. It's hard for me to meet, young black girls that haven't gone through something, and
You got
black
that
boys.
right.
Black boys don't want to talk about it, but they have
Absolutely.
gone through it too. So when you're bringing in all of these negative energies and all of this whatever for your own pleasure and not thinking about your kids, or you may trust this person. Some people are really, really that good,
They're good at
where
putting on
you like,
facades. That's right.
uh-huh.
Oh, they're
Yes. So,
wonderful.
yeah. So you might say, oh, this is the best person for my family, my child, or my children, or whatever. Just, I don't know, have the proper discernment, have strong people around you, have people that you can trust, because everyone's going to have an opinion, and some people are going to be haters. You're not, they're
Right.
gonna like, oh, they're not for me, but you have to be able to recognize who's for you and who's there for your kids,
That's right.
and build that fence. Have let God help you build that armor of protection around you and
Use discernment
your
in all
children.
areas of your
Mhm.
life, but especially when it
Yes.
comes to your children. Use your holy
Yes.
discernment, because I'm telling you,
Mhm.
it's not there. It's not there for nothing. It's there to put
Right.
us to use to protect and guide us, especially at a younger age. And until those kids can make their own decisions, it's our job to protect them. You know,
Mhm.
so
Right.
my background is law enforcement. Like it goes back, and that's my thing. Like that's what I love. So I watch all these crime TV shows, and you wouldn't believe like judges, lawyers, doctors, the mother thinking like, their family got it going on and they've been raping the daughter for
Mhm.
11, 12 years, or the
Yeah.
uncle has
Yeah.
been raping the child. They're sending them to
Yeah.
Uncle Raymond's house, per se, for the
Mhm.
weekend. And the kid been getting
Mhm.
raped. And guess what? The mother's so busy living her life, she ain't trying to hear the child. So it's
Right.
important to really know our children. It's important to
Yeah.
listen to our children and guard them. And when it
Yes.
comes to the subject of many men in any capacity, keep the children's best interests first.
Yes. Absolutely.
All right, so I'm going to move into
Okay.
my red line segment for tonight.
Okay. Red lines.
Yes, ma'am. Today's red line topic is she moved on and I'm not having it. So, fellas, nothing triggers some men like your woman finally moving on, especially if children are involved. Once she's in a new relationship, that's not the time to realize you need to step up and randomly start fixing stuff. Start popping up at her house checking tire pressure, constantly asking your kids about her new situation. None of that. If that woman has moved on and is healthy for your child, nothing else concerns you.
Mhm.
9 times out of 10, she given you more than enough chances to get it right before she moved on with someone else. Women, most real women, anyways, would prefer to be with the child's father to avoid bringing someone new into their child's space for all the reasons we've discussed during this episode, but not at the cost of our own health, respect, or happiness. It comes a time when you have to call it, kid or not. What Outcast say? You can go on and get the hell on you and your mama. Sorry, Miss Jackson.
You and your mama.
Or in this case, Mr. Jackson, whatever your name
Miss.
is. Yeah, go on and get the hell on now. We done did that. It ain't working. Sometimes dating requires women going through multiple phases to get to the right person, but give that woman space and time to figure out how to get on with her life without having to go back and forth with you.
Mhm.
And that's my
Love
red line
it.
topic for thank Thank you.
All right. I love it. Yes. Excellent. Excellent. I'm in total agreement with that.
Thank you.
Yes. Move on. All right. Our final segment. Oh, before we get into the final segment, we just want to give you a reminder of submitting your red line submissions to wifey and baby mama at gmail.com. Please submit your red line submissions in order to win a $100 gift card. We had a winner for the month of May.
And the month of
And we,
June winner should be coming up in 2 weeks. So you
oh
guys
yeah,
better get them submitted. So because we're gonna be picking
exactly.
soon.
Yep, we
Yeah, we're
will
gonna have a new
be.
winner.
Yes. So please submit your red line submission, even if you don't feel like, they're that deep enough, or you might question, I don't know if they would, play
That
this, or if they would,
qualifies.
if this one would win or qualify. Yeah, or if it would win. It doesn't matter. Please submit them. We
Because
will.
all we're gonna do is pick them out. We don't go by subject topic. So we're just gonna pick
Nope.
it out. So it doesn't matter. Don't
Mm-hmm.
write nothing crazy now. We ain't sanctified Holy Ghost filled holy rollers, but we got a little respect about the show. So
Yeah,
nothing
just a
crazy
little.
now. Just a little bit now, but we try to keep it respectful for all listeners of all age. So don't put nothing
Yes,
crazy
we
because I'm telling you
do.
now we ain't reading it. But
We're not.
we it's not to the point where it got to be
Yeah,
PG
or
6 either.
I don't know. We could probably clean it up if
We
needed.
cleaned it up.
Maybe.
Yeah, we can clean it
Maybe.
up. So submit it.
Maybe.
You know, submit it, but we try to keep it
Yeah.
clean.
Try, please, please. All right. Now we're on to the final segment that we like to call the fictional family I'm feeling. And this week, the fictional family is a different type of family. Typically I would say the Johnsons or the Adams or
The
whatever.
Jeffersons.
The Jeffersons. This fictional family is a little kind of like blended families because it is comes from the movie Life, the 1999 film. I don't know if you all remember.
That's my girl. That's one of my top five. I love
With
that movie.
Eddie Murphy and Martin Lawrence. Oh my gosh, I've seen this movie 100 times. But the scene I'm going to talk about tonight is the one where, Bokeem Woodbine, he is
Can't get
his
right.
character can't get right. Can't get right. He actually impregnates the warden's daughter, and the baby comes out black because the warden is white. White warden, white daughter has this little black baby, and of course all the
But
prisoners are
on the
black.
chain gang is black.
On the chain gang. Yes, on the chain gang. Cause oh yes, so I forgot to, set that up too, because this is back in based in the 1960s or something like that.
Yes.
Because we don't have chain gangs today. So
Right.
based in the 1960s. So the warden comes out with this little baby, this little black baby, and he's holding it up against all the prisoners are lined up. I'm sorry, they're lined up. I'm horrible at telling a story. I can write it down uh, very very well, but verbally, I'm sure you've all picked that up by now. But anyway, they're all lining up, and the warden is walking by holding this little black baby up beside the face of each prisoner, looking to see who it looks like. And then he brings it to Can't Get Right, and Can't Get Right is fine until the warden turns around. Then he starts laughing because he knows that's his baby. And so the warden turns around. He's like, "What you laughing at, boy? This your baby?" Or something like that. And so one by one, Eddie Murphy steps out, Martin Lawrence steps out. They all step out and they're like, "It's my baby, it's my baby, it's my baby. No, it's my baby, it's my baby." And then, of course, we all know the very the our famous or favorite character, Bernie Mac as Jangle Leg. What does he say, Sean?
I'm the pappy.
I'm the peppy.
I'm the pappy.
I'm the
Jangling,
pappy.
jangling.
So,
See, this your segment. Why you want to make me cut up?
oh, I know, but many men, many men. So all these men stood up. They all stood up to protect Can't
That
Get
one
Right.
man.
You know,
That's
they
awesome. Oh, I
protect
love
that
it.
one.
Okay. That's a different spin. I see you. That's a different spin. I like that.
Yes, totally
Okay.
different.
Totally different, but I love it.
Our, our prison families.
It's a blended family nonetheless, right?
Nonetheless, you got that right, especially when you're serving life.
That's right.
All right. So there we have it, the end of our episode tonight. We want to thank you all for joining us. We really, really appreciate your listening and following and liking and sharing. And we ask that you continue to stick with us. We promise you a very good ride. Um, Sean and I, my partner in crime, love you, girl.
I love you
We
too, honey.
we are doing this, and we ask you to, all of our listeners, to continue to follow us on all our platforms and like and share. From our Transistor site, you can go to any platform that you listen to your podcasts on. You know, we welcome feedback, even if you want to send something to wifey and baby mama at gmail.com that is not a red line. Maybe it's just something you want to get off your chest, even if
Absolutely.
it's a criticism or, feedback for
Accolade.
Sean and
We
yes, accolade.
we
We'll take
accept
it.
it all.
Yes.
Accolades, negative feedback, negative
Yes.
criticism. You can't if you're not willing to be criticized, you're not ready to grow. So whatever you have
That's
for us,
right.
just let us know. We're here for it.
Let us know. All right. Thank you so much. And we will look forward to meeting and talking to all of you next week. Have a good
Love
one.
you all. Bye.